No one can hide from my sight.
友人の剣をくれ
Cheers, love! The cavalry's here!
Hey everybody, and welcome to ESHQ. It's a little different today, and that is because we are at a different location as we are doing our Overwatch League stage finals viewing party. So we had to be in a different studio. So
Oh yeah.
but you
Little
know,
Sunday fun day.
yeah, exactly. Before we jump into the games of that we're gonna see, I want to make one little meme joke
Sure.
to my good buddy Kyle here.
Uh-oh.
Because I know he likes the Valiant, and the Valiant could have played upset and really thrown our stage finals into a bit of turmoil, but instead they didn't. And you know what? It's a key that they've got to clean up moving forward, and this is it right here.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have an objective, right? So if this is the objective, we're
Dude,
just say
you
the,
saw my face while it was happening live. Like,
So this iPad will be the objective, right? This is what you should not let. Exactly. And then to not come to the objective at all, that's a bad thing to do.
hey, you know what Sombra has? She has an ability that lets you teleport to a point. What if you threw that on the point? What a concept, right? Like, God.
I
mean, obviously they were shaken up, but I mean, the fact that it just kept going on like that.
Yeah.
Like,
As a Gladiators fan, I became a Valiant fan for about an hour, and I gotta say, I was very disappointed. Oh my goodness.
Oh, it was almost a little sad to see, really, with we had such a colorful playoff race that got a little dull in the final moments, but ultimately the Gladiators made a little bit of a show out of it, but the Fusion just put in the work during the week.
Yep.
So
Yep.
that is how we have our three finalists here. We have undisputably the most just overwhelmingly powerful team, NYXL. We have the easily second place in the power rankings, London Spitfire taking in second, and the Philadelphia Fusion taking in third, because the Seoul Dynasty failed to make that final sprint once again.
Oh my God. You're just jabbing and stabbing Kyle just right there.
Well, I can't help it. Both of his teams, they look so promising all of stage one.
Yeah.
They look good in stage two. And then
you know, I have been a Caps fan since like I can remember, so this is nothing new to me. It's just like, oh, we're gonna get to the playoffs. Like this time they didn't even make it, so it's like whatever.
Man.
But you know, I think Seoul's really gonna like take a look at this, really just understand what happened. And to be honest, Philadelphia, you know, they've just been talking about it. I remember it was one of those like short intros before one of their matches, and they're like, oh yeah, we're not gonna be able to make it this year. Like we're just gonna take this time to reorganize and like rebuild.
Yeah.
And look at them now. I mean, like, they really just, you know, I think Philadelphia is one of the best teams that work together as a team. Like, these people just, like, obviously, like, I wouldn't say, like, love each other in, like, you know, like, a weird sense, but, like, just almost, like, familial.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's just so happy to be with each other. There's always, whenever a round happens, there's always the, you know, good job and, like, the hug and stuff like that. And, like, I am all on board with that type of camaraderie.
I think that was forced upon them as well because of the communication issues. I mean, they have like 9 nationalities on that team or something close to that. So I think if they didn't come together, and not just when they're skirmishing or playing these games, if they weren't spending time together outside of Overwatch, then that wouldn't have happened. So them spending that time, them communicating in such a way where it builds that camaraderie, I think it shows from what we've seen that is helping in their in-game experience.
And I think that was one of the first episodes I was on here with you guys. I was like, you know, why isn't Philly doing better? They have Shadowburn. Like, why are they not doing better just with that name on there alone?
Right,
because
right.
when we were watching the World Cup, I was like, wow, he's probably one of the best Genjis I've ever seen. Like, hands down,
Very
like,
fair.
Undisputable. Like, I'm, like, looking at just his mechanics, his awareness, just the skills. Because, you know, you watch a bunch of Genjis that are at these high levels, and you'll notice key differences here and there, but some just stand out more than others. And to me, Shadowburn's always been one of those players.
Sure.
So I'm happy to see that he's getting the credit he deserves. And honestly, with the maneuvers and the moves that Seoul has been making, you know, benching Fleta for no reason, absolutely not. Then bringing him out in the last game, they kind of deserve this. Like, I love them, but I have that hard love for them. You know what I'm saying? It's like tough love. It's like if you're not going to play them, then you don't really deserve it. So
it's going to be interesting to see these core teams. In the first season, they're going to be learning all these mistakes that they're doing. You know, they're going to be like, okay, we can't do that again. And then as new teams get added in the sequential seasons, I want to see the core teams, how they stand up against these new teams coming in, making those mistakes, and or if they haven't seen what has happened in the past, making the same mistakes, and how much better the core teams are going to be compared to those teams.
Right.
Yeah, just that dynamic is going to be interesting to watch. But seriously, I really, really think the playoffs this stage 2 are going to be very fun to watch.
Yeah, just talking about like Excelsior alone, they're probably the best oiled machine in the Overwatch League.
Yeah.
They get in, they just do what they do. Their record shows it. Like there's almost nothing even to say about it. Like you just watch Sabiolbe on Tracer, and you're just like, I mean, that's where they belong. You know, like it's just like watching the mechanics on that, watching like what was it in the game yesterday where she was just literally stalking behind the enemy team and then just zip, zip, shoot, shoot. And like Derek was actually talking about that, like just watching the Tracer never stopping, like following the exact target, like precisely. Like I don't think I've ever seen weapon accuracy like that on any hero, let alone a Tracer, which at least you're like right behind them, so it's not too hard, I imagine.
Right.
But on that level and on that scale, sure. With that being said, though, Spitfire, Adam has not had a hard time following his favorite team. I mean, like, I wish I could say that about Dynasty right now, but, like, Spitfire is where they belong, sure.
One thing I will say about the Dynasty, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was maybe something that internally they agreed upon, that they don't care about the stage finals. They care about the overall finals.
Well, that's what matters at the end of the day. Like this is great. Like this is going to be exciting. This is going to be fun. But you want to win the Super Bowl of the event, you know?
Exactly. Right. And so for me, I wouldn't be surprised if internally they were like, oh, look, we know we might lose this game, but look, if Munchkin and Bunny don't start performing and Wakid doesn't start being able to at least break into the roster, we're not gonna win the finals.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that, like using it as the do or die game. Like this is going to be the game that decides how we shake things up further on later on. That's actually a good point. I didn't even think about that.
And so one of the other things that it makes more painfully obvious for the Dynasty, and maybe easier in their own internal workings, to go like, look, we're gonna let you go, and we're going to pick someone else up, because, you know, when we're sitting here and we have a do or die game and we have to play Fleta, we can't be in that situation.
Put up or show up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of internal dialogue with the Dynasty about that. But yeah, no, as far as the Spitfire go, I really do like the way they're approaching the game. I think obviously Excelsior are still doing their tactic better, but I think those two tactics are the best two. You either have a roster that doesn't need to sub out, sub in, move a lot of parts. You only have extra players really for niche roles, or if someone's sick or can't make it.
There's no clockwork on that team. You know what I'm saying? Like, and same with jab, right? But with Spitfire, they have a little bit of that problem too. I feel like, you know, there's a lot of times where they won't play Bird Ring, and you're like, but why?
Yeah. And that's what I like the idea of what they want to do, which is they want to have a 12-man roster, and they want to have each team practice only with itself.
Well, have you also noticed that since we've been talking about it, like Fuel has been running Seagull now, and they're actually getting wins. Like I mean, not to like say anything about Fuel, but or like because they're not in the top 3, but like I just noticed that like maybe they've been listening, you know, maybe they've been taking some advice, because like to even just get one win on what was it, Excelsior, or was it Spitfire?
The 2 wins on Excelsior, 1 win on Spitfire.
Like no matter
in 1 week.
No matter if you lost those rounds, you're still getting maps on the best teams right now.
That's right.
So I mean,
that's going to like equal. From mid-tier, that's going to be an overtime game. That's going to be a game in which you could actually win. Lower-tier teams, you can probably sweep the floor. That's what it translates to. Yeah, that's what it's going to, like, their team's coming together, and I'm super excited about it.
It's like the Browns scoring on the Patriots or something. It's like you're still scoring, though. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
The 2 things I'll say about the Fuel, though, that I want to see from them coming into Stage 3. 1, they need to clean up their tank play. Because the second Excelsior and the Spitfire went, all right, punish the tanks, they started struggling. 2, I want to see Effect calm down.
Sure.
And the reason I say that is because he looked amazing in both of these games. And the only thing I can attribute it to is, and I'm talking in the player cam, is when you look at like his body posture, you look at his like how he looks emotionally while he's playing. Him getting killed by Sabiolbi or Prophet, it doesn't look like it phases him. It looks like he's like, well, I mean, these guys are great.
It's
I'm okay
expected.
with it.
Yeah.
When-
I've been killed by a lesser being.
When he was when Jake was getting the better of him on Tracer, and when Asher was making him struggle, and especially when Dante was taking Effect to town, Effect looked tilted to a different level. Like, how am I losing to this subpar player? And that has to be let go.
Well, any mentality like that in any game, in any sport, when you start, you're beating yourself up at that point. You know, you're your own enemy now. Like, for me, it's just like, all right, I got to clean this up. I got to clean that up. If someone, like, lesser than me, like, if, let's say, like, a gold player took me to town or whatever like that, maybe their just mechanics are better. Maybe they beat me in a 1v1 duel. Maybe, like, or I'll just tell myself, like, well, I mean, I'm not a McCree main or something, like.
And the other thing is maybe they're just on and you're off.
Having an off day,
like
man.
that happens.
Absolutely.
And I mean, and especially when I go, even the worst players that are in the Overwatch League are some of the best players on the planet.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, like,
you're still all in the top 1% here. I mean, like, you can be the worst of the top 1%, and that doesn't matter. On the stage, it might show a little bit, but you just take that as, like, I deserve to be here. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's how I would look at it.
No,
anyways.
exactly. Well, I mean, let's go back to stage 1 real quick with the Outlaws versus Seoul Dynasty. And, I mean,
that was, the first match ever, too, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked that. That was a good one.
And, no, the Outlaw or Fuel in Dynasty was the first
That's
match.
what it was. Man, that was the hypest. Because everyone was just like, Fuel's going to do great. It was just like,
never mind.
Well, hey, we thought they still were because it was a 2-1 finish. It was exciting.
sure, and it was also the first game, so
Yeah.
I mean, we had a lot more to see.
But the first time Houston and Dynasty clashed, I mean, there was no Lynxer and Clockwork had to play, and I mean, one of the things that Fleta said after the game was that he thought Clockwork played really well, and he went on to say that he feels like the game would have been even closer if Lynxer would have been able to play. But I mean, so it's like a compliment backhand in like one sentence where he's going like, you know, you can't discount any player in the Overwatch League,
Right.
even if they're a backup and they're a sub. On the flip side, it does make that much of a difference that, you know, between having, you know, Clockwork on the game versus Lynxer in the game. And it's not like some huge insult to Clockwork. Just like Lynxer is a 1 in a million player.
Yeah, Fleta is also just a very blunt person in that regard too. So it's just like that's not even a statement that needs to be taken offensively. That's just a fact. I mean, your backup is probably not as good as your primary person.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, duh.
And I think that's something that in general some of these teams need to get a better handle on as far as their players and their subs and their rotations, and is understanding that it's like, you know, you're gonna have on moments, you're gonna have off moments. Maybe it's a niche player, but you got to find the right way that the niche players, you know, fit into the roster. And I think that's the thing that really excels New York Excelsior to the top of the roster is they have Pine, and Pine has shown to be great.
Yeah.
He's not as flexible as Libero or Sabiolbi.
Right.
So what do? They don't play him unless they go,
This map is
now we
good
play
for
it.
McCree.
Right. Yeah, sure. Well, with that being said, though, because you were talking about like the specific, you know, roles and tilting. So XQC leaving Fuel, you know, you were talking about the tanks needing help and stuff like that. I think there's much better tank players than him. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to like. I know a lot of people have problems with him personally. A lot of people have problems with his stream and all that. I'm just talking about strictly in the Overwatch League, strictly as a player. There are better tanks than him, right? And what do you think about that, like him leaving? I think it'll help the team.
I think it will. I think if he would have not been here for stage 2, it would have helped the team. I think with the Reinhardt meta and Orisa coming in with the potential of stage 3, especially if Brigitte is brought into the Overwatch League, I think XQC is going to be sorely missed because I do firmly believe he was the best Orisa in the league and in the top 5 Reinhardts. His Winston play, it's funny enough, he's known as a Winston player. I wasn't overly impressed at any moment.
That's the thing. Like, everyone always says he's a Winston player, but I was just kind of like...
But, I mean, when we saw... I mean, he the Dallas Fuel dismantled the Gladiators, and they dismantled the Gladiators because of XQC. Fisher had at no point in the entire game did Fisher was Fisher ever in control.
Sure.
I mean, XQC. Was shield baiting him, shield juking him, popping him off the map, countercharging, dodging his charge. I mean, you name a way to outplay an Orisa or to outplay a Reinhardt, and XQC did it to Fissure.
Yeah.
So I do feel like Dallas could miss XQC quite heavily moving into stage 3 with Reinhardt and Orisa potentially being that much more prevalent in the meta.
Sure.
Okay. I mean, I'm excited about Reinhardt and Orisa like
Oh,
being
yeah.
in the meta, so works out for me.
So I will say, before we hop into the playoffs, and we do need to hop into the playoffs, the last thing I want to say about a team, there's just a big question mark, and get a quick opinion from you guys, is the Boston Uprising. All right? So let's look at them as far as the stage go. It's terrible in stage 1, all of a sudden great in stage 1, right?
Yeah.
Terrible in stage 2, all of a sudden great in stage 2.
Yeah.
Do they continue the trend?
You know what? I think they are. I mean, take a look at who they're versing in the beginning of each stage, though.
Mm-hmm.
They're versing some top-tier teams as well. So it could be that they're supposed to be right smack dab in the middle of the entire roster of teams. However, I feel like they are actually going to pop off in stage 3 earlier. I feel like they're going to dismantle some of the medium to low tier teams, and they're going to give the top tier teams a little bit more run for their money. So I feel like Boston Uprising is going to be a top tier team starting in stage 3. I feel like we need to keep an eye on them.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to overtake Excelsior or Spitfire very easily, but they can probably handle Philadelphia Fusion as well as Seoul Dynasty.
You think they're going to be battling in that where the Gladiators are right
Correct.
now, the Fusion, that kind of
exactly
5th to 3rd.
the wild card 3rd spot.
Got it.
That's
Okay.
that's where they are.
Bushido?
I mean, it's no surprise and no shock to anyone who's been watching us that I actually am a fan of Boston Uprising. I think they are one of the most entertaining teams to watch, and I think every match that they're in, I'm glad they're here because I want to watch this. You know what I'm saying? Like we were watching, Valiant and Excelsior, and I love Valiant, but I'm like, please, can we just get to the next set of matches? Because we already knew how this was gonna go once the first match was going. We're like, okay, I mean, I love them, but come on,
Right.
Or it's like watching Dynasty against Mayhem. You're just kind of like, why am I watching this? You
Yeah.
know, I love the league, but I feel like whenever I watch Uprising against anyone, I'm just like, all right, this is gonna be a good match. I want to watch this because. It's so fun to root for the Uprising. It's so fun. And, I think Boston fans have a great team right now. I think being a fan of Boston would be awesome because you have that team that can shake it up. You have that team that can fight with the big dogs, but you can also, dismantle the little dogs. You know what I'm saying? You are really just smack dab in there. And, I'm a little jealous, actually, of, being able to be a fan of that team and, having that be your home team. I feel like it'd be awesome if we had, a DC team or something like that, you know?
It needs to happen. It really
It does because, I want, another
The
team.
DC
besides-
Destroyers.
And it's
Oh
funny
my
because I'm
goodness,
really
yes.
not I'm really not usually a South Korean team player in StarCraft and stuff like that. You know, they always win, or there's always the thing about it. But Dynasty is just such a lovable team. It's really hard not to just become infected, and they're not top tier. So it's you're not rooting for the best of the best just right away.
Right.
So but with going back to that Uprising, what do I think how they're going to perform? I think that Uprising has finally gotten into the groove of things. I think they finally understand where they stand, and I think they finally realize that they can be better than how they're performing. They can be better than the standard underdog. They can actually, what Sinai's was saying about, they could probably take Philly. Philly can't be discredited at this point. Philly's in the top 3.
Yeah.
They've earned my respect big time. They've had some crazy plays. They've been playing, like I said, one of the best teams working as a team that I've ever seen, and the love for each other is so there that it's infectious. It's so fun watching them win a map because they're just so excited. Who's the guy with the full beard?
Oh, Fraggy.
Yeah.
Love him to death. He's just so happy to hug
The
everyone.
Viking.
Yeah, I love it, man. I just get I gotta follow him more because he just cracks me up.
He's good in interviews too. I absolutely love it when they talk to him.
He's probably just it's sad I didn't know his name just because I just love seeing that guy. He's just so excited, and his Roadhog was crazy good. But yeah, Uprising is going to perform because they know they can now.
Yeah.
They've been established and they can handle this. And Sinai's also made a great point. I mean, when you're going against the top teams early in the stage, it's kind of hard to really, show.
Get
And we
into
were
your
just
groove, yeah.
talking about that last night after the matches. It's like, oh, a team got 4-0'd, but if you didn't watch the match and you didn't see that every match was 99 to 99, like that score tells you nothing.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, so, and I feel like Uprising is one of those teams that they don't get really swept. I feel like anytime that they get beat, it still was at least kind of close. It wasn't just like, oh, what a complete shutout. These guys suck. They're trash. Like, it was nothing like that.
Right.
It's a very fair opinion. But so we're gonna go ahead and take a quick break, and then we're gonna come back with the finals.
We'll be right
So-
back after
Yeah,
these messages.
exactly.
And welcome back, and we're jumping into the finals here, which means we got to get some predictions. So this first
yeah.
game is the London Spitfire going up against the Philadelphia Fusion. Now, I know where I go. I think most people, especially if you follow me, know where I go.
Oh,
but
yeah, Philadelphia
just to
Aces high every time with this guy.
absolutely, there's no stop to my fandom when it comes to the London Spitfire, and
Well, they're good to you,
it's
though.
exactly.
They're good to you on Twitter. They take good care of you over there.
And I like the team.
It's a healthy relationship. Very symbiotic.
yeah.
So yeah, no, for me, you know what? I'm actually gonna go. I'm actually gonna go kind of bold on this one. I have the London Spitfire taking this 3-0.
Whoa. Okay. Interesting. First three matches or first three maps taken by London.
And just to
Interesting.
clarify, if you're not familiar with the finals, they are best of 5. So this is the only time where a 3-0 is the final.
Yeah.
Like, so that
Because
would.
even if you won 2, you couldn't come back.
Yep.
So, but
Yes, I know. Where are we going?
All right, guys. I mean, this is a tough match. London Spitfire, they are not as, I guess, sometimes they dip, sometimes they just go above and beyond. So it really depends on how they're playing. Philadelphia Fusion, kind of the same role right here. They dip, they rise, they do a whole bunch of awesome plays. Sometimes they just fall apart. They don't look like they're completely meshing. I think it's going to be a close game. I think the Philadelphia Fusion are going to take it. It's going to be a 3-2.
okay. Well, so I gotta ask this: Do you have them? Do you have them like winning the first? Like just
Sorry,
kind of going?
no, this is for the first one.
Yeah.
This is
No,
Fusion
yeah, Fusion
winning
Fusion Spitfire.
against London Spitfire.
No, what I'm asking
Yeah.
is, do you have it? Do you have it like the reverse sweep? Do you have it like the games are just back and forth?
It's back and forth. It has to be. I feel like the Fusion are going to win the first one, back and forth.
Okay.
Not up until the very end.
Okay.
I feel like they're kind of London Spitfire in general are just a better team. However, I feel like Fusion can pick off some lucky breaks and get some sweeps going, and really kind of I think they're going to come in here and actually go for a win. And,
Well,
and
I
really,
would
I mean,
hope.
okay, everyone does that, but they are going to try their hardest. They're up against the Stage 1 champions of the last playoffs, so I think they're going to take this as seriously as possible.
So, well, let me ask you this: So, the when they met earlier in this stage,
Sure, yeah.
Philadelphia Fusion got 4-0'd by the Spitfire.
Yeah, I understand. This is at the end, though.
Oh no, I'm saying, but does that factor in at all to where
That's why
you?
it's not a completely clean sweep. It's
Okay.
going to be back and forth.
Okay.
It's going to be a brawl.
Okay.
100%.
So before we go over to Bashida, let me ask this: Who is the player that makes the difference for the Fusion?
I mean, if Shadowburn can completely come off here and just destroy and take out, their supports, I feel like it's going to be one of those games where if the supports are left open for the London Spitfire, then they're going to be a brick wall.
No, it makes sense. I agreed that I think Shadowburn's the more likely candidate than Carpe, EQO, or Snillo for them, because I think if he can
Carpe
get
is a great player too, though.
oh absolutely, but
I'm
but
a
I
fan
think
of his.
I think the chances
But
of Carpe
Shadowburn's where it's at.
Yeah.
I think the chances of Carpe shutting down Profit are less likely than Shadowburn being able to play Genji at a high enough level
Sure.
that Birdring can't play the Widow.
Sure.
And I think on the Genji to Genji front, I think Birdring is slightly under Shadowburn's play.
Sure. I mean, okay.
That's actually fair. I probably would have said that exact thing.
So
We have, I feel like Shadowburn and Birdring are like S tier level, right? Carpe isn't, I don't feel like he's at that level where he can take on those duels that Shadowburn can most likely come out on top with.
Yeah, Shadowburn's definitely one of the best duelists in the league, like hands down. Like that's what I'm saying. When you look at play like his, I mean, like we were talking about that the other day, just dueling mechanics versus like team and awareness mechanics. And Shadowburn, I mean, when that guy is in the background as Genji, I mean, if anyone tries to 1v1 him, they're probably gonna lose.
Yeah.
Like it's pretty crazy. So you need to at least have 2 people on him, like a Zen with the Discord orb. But at that point, Genji's already doing his job. You have now a 4v5, you know, and you're missing one of your supports because, you know, Zen is one of the better ones because he can throw his orb that way and then Discord that way. But if he's not looking, that healing orb's going to come back and, yeah, it causes a lot of chaos. So, yeah, that's pretty good, actually.
Really, it's more of a hope that the Fusion wins. The percentage is not favorable, but I'm hoping.
Well, I have some talking points we can come back to in a second, but I do want to know where your prediction goes.
Like I said, I've actually been a fan of Philly for a little while now. They're kind of special to me in the regards of like the Uprising. Like Philly to me is the Uprising story. You know, like they crawled up to the top and they did it. And like I said, I just love them, like their energy, and they love their fans and everything. With that being said, though, I don't think, at least on paper, you know, like I don't think they have what it takes to beat Spitfire. I know they can do it. I know it's definitely capable, and I know that Spitfire has made some really weird calls lately too, which has actually affected their team. But if we were to look at them side by side on paper, I'd have to go with Spitfire. So, yeah, it's probably going to be a 3-0, like you said. Unfortunately, I don't want it to be like that. I would much rather watch Cyanize's thing unfold back to back. Here. Dude, how hype would that be? Like, man, that would be exciting. It'd be a little more stressful for you. But, man.
You wouldn't be able to sit down.
But even if it went back and forth and you still won, like, how exciting would that be?
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
And actually, the big thing for me is now, so if the London Spitfire, and this can't actually happen because you obviously have to play all your divisional teams in each stage. If the London Spitfire didn't play the Philadelphia Fusion this stage, I would say it would be more likely for the Fusion to win.
Okay.
But one of the things that we've seen from the Fusion, so I'm going to use New York Excelsior as the example here. So Fusion were the only team in stage 1 outside of the finals to beat the New York Excelsior. So in the regular stage, they were the only team to beat them.
Right.
The second time they met, you could tell that the Fusion tried to mix up their play a little bit. They wanted to try to catch the Excelsior off guard.
Sure.
The Excelsior, when we're not losing to this team again, and Fusion promptly got 4-0'd.
Yeah.
And
they did not fall for the feint.
Exactly. And so that's the one area that I can see with the Fusion is they mechanically, like if you just Fraggy to Gesture, Poco to Fury, or Huyal.
Yeah.
I mean, you go comparable. I would lean Spitfire, but I mean, not
what
by
I was
a
saying,
huge.
if you put them on paper, it's exactly what I was getting at.
You know, but and you go like I think like skill wise, these teams aren't. They're not. It's not a huge gap between them.
It's just Spitfire's way more consistent.
More consistent, and I would say their handle on the amount of strategies that they can do is higher.
Okay.
Whereas we've seen the Fusion kind of break down and go like, all right, we're going to do a Sombra play. Okay, they're doing a counter Sombra play. Do we counter their counter, or do we just dive into playing Sombra?
Yeah.
And that was in fact no, I'm sorry, it wasn't a 4-0 by the Excelsior in stage 2. They did end up stealing one map from the Excelsior in the very end. But still, I mean, going from 3-2 winning versus the Excelsior to, I mean, borderline getting routed by the Excelsior in stage 2. So
I think personally, any 3-2 that happens, that could go either way.
Oh, sure.
It still could go either way. That's why, like, and it's not a shocking outcome. Like, regardless, 3-2 to me, if anyone wins something 3-2, it's like I wouldn't even say that someone's the better team or like the better team won on that. It was just mechanics, stress. You know, those variables got under them. And like when you're going on that last match, man, and like you see the points like going off and it's 99 and it's in overtime, you can see the intensity, like the intensity of their bodies and like how stressed out they are, and like it's stressful, man. So
I agree.
But so who's the next match?
So, well, here we'll do it this way. So we'll say Fusion makes it through.
Okay.
So we'll do both teams.
Yeah.
We'll do
Okay.
both teams.
Yeah.
But so if the Fusion make it through versus the New York Excelsior, I will say I'm gonna go very, very firmly to the New York Excelsior. And it is on the coattails of what I was just saying about the Fusion, where they don't have the talent depth. They don't have the coordination and strategy depth yet, in my opinion, to play the London Spitfire, beat the London Spitfire, and then change their game up enough that the Excelsior don't go, well, we just watched everything you did.
We have all your moves. This armor's already registered all your moves, Steve.
I mean, and I think that's one of the big things when it comes to like the Spitfire, or comes to the Spitfire. The biggest reason why the Spitfire look better against the Dynasty than the Excelsior do is because when the Dynasty watches Excelsior play, they go, all right, this is what we have to do to beat them. And I think that Dynasty's just slightly misfiring in their DPS department to be able to accomplish that.
I also think that Excelsior is literally the best team to watch another team and go, I know what to do to beat you now, and commit to that. And I think that's part of the reason why they're at their top. Why they're at the top. Any loss that they've had, they've always redeemed themselves because they go, all right, what went wrong here? What happened here? And they go into the back and they talk. They're like, hey man, like I was getting flanked and like I needed you and you were pushed a little too far. Something along those lines.
They make those kind of differences. And I think that's why though, when it comes to the Fusion Excelsior game, I do think if Fusion makes it to the finals, as much as I would be rooting for the Fusion if they did make it to the finals, I don't think Fusion has much of a chance unless they can coax the NYXL into let's just play team versus team and take strategy out of the mix.
Well, also I think if it does happen, there is a chance it could happen only because Philly just beat Spitfire. They're pumped. They have those positive vibes, and like in a game like this, man, like positive vibes are huge. Like just being in a good mood, being happy, like just having fun, that really helps counter the stress, and that really just. I mean, big things happen when you're a positive guy. You know what I'm saying? And
I would say
this team's a positive team. And look at it. I'm just saying, big things happen when you're positive.
I think if they win if they win 3-1, I think that could absolutely be a big. I think if they win 3-2, it means that some part of their game, there's going to be one player on the team who's like, we did it. It wasn't because of me. And that then will be the reason they lose to the Excelsior. So if they win 3-1, I think that absolutely could be the thread that carries that positivity. But like, I mean, if it's someone like, especially there's one player that ruins it for the Fusion. If Carpe isn't on or is put off or gets tilted, without Carpe, I mean, Snillo's decent. Snillo's not beating Sabiolbi.
Well, I also think there's something that goes into this that I actually haven't even brought up yet, or we haven't actually brought up with. When you go into a situation like this where you're like, oh, well, we were never even going to make it, and then you make it, that actually takes a lot of stress off, because you're like, we weren't even supposed to be here.
Sure.
So, like, that's not even on your mind, man. Like, when you're Spitfire and when you're Excelsior and you're like, if we lose to this team, like, in a playoff situation, that's a joke. You know what I'm saying? Like think of, like, what will happen. Like, you're going to get, like, that's a lot of stress and a lot of pressure on your mind. Like, that, I mean, I necessarily wouldn't think about it as much, but when you're at the top like this and stuff like that, the thing is about being the best is, one, you're eventually going to lose. Like, so that's inevitable, and people need to have that mindset. But when you're Excelsior and when you are the best of the best, if you lose to any of these teams, that's going to be a huge deal. It's going to be a big deal. And I don't know. I think that might be enough to shake them up a bit and once again, this has to be like planets aligned, like, like the Buddha's up there too with like, like God and all that too, like just like, pushing like Philly like to the max here.
Right.
But I think it could happen, and I my Twitter would be on fire. Like I would be like losing it. Like I would be like flailing around. I'd pick Adam up and like throw him around too. Like
So
it'd be hype.
So Havoc, what is the score for Philadelphia Fusion and New York Excelsior?
It's 3-0 to the Excelsior.
Okay. I am also. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going 3-1. 3-1 Excelsior. I
Okay.
think the Fusion have it in them to take a map. I think the less stress, if they do make it to this point, you know what Bushido Viking said, definitely comes into play here. I think they're going to come in. They might even take the first match. They're like, yeah, we can do this. And then...
That's true. They wouldn't be warmed up either.
Yeah.
Like Excelsior wouldn't be warmed up technically, would they, or would they be?
I believe they. Well, I don't. I mean, they won't be officially warmed up,
Right,
but
right.
I
I'm sure
do
they've been doing
believe.
training stuff.
I believe they have set up a skirmish.
They
Yeah,
should.
yeah.
They should anyways.
So
That's only fair.
right. So I feel like they have it in them to take a map. So 3-1 New York Excelsior.
I think Philly has shown that they can take a map from Excelsior. I think that once again I've talked so much about them at this point, like just out of like what I want to happen. I think though ultimately I've learned in this game like to choose what I think will happen, not what I want to happen. And if I do, I always put a disclaimer, guys. Like it's like
Yeah.
this is what I'd like to see happen, but this is what I think will happen. I do think it will end up being a 3-1 though.
Okay.
I do think that's exactly how it will pan out. And what, dude, if it's like back to back with Spitfire, then it's Excelsior back to back, I will like be on the ground, like spread out, like just watching this, just like I can't believe this
Take
is
my
happening.
energy.
Dude, spirit bombs, just like get it, Shadowbird,
Yes.
take my energy. Like it's just like. Yeah, like I won't even rip off this jersey. Like Philly's underneath it. No, I'm not that kind of guy.
Use your-
But I'm just like, you can do it.
Yes.
Philly. Like, and I hope the other teams really
Fusion
are
reactions.
like rooting for like the teams that they care about too. Because like no matter what team I would be a part of, no matter if they make a DC team, I'll always care about a certain number of teams. Just because
Oh, sure.
I love the players. I mean, like I
Yeah.
want to see the players succeed. I want to see these people succeed. It's why we watch it, And like I love the rivalries and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, I actually don't dislike any team in this league. Ironically, I really don't. Like I don't want to see any team necessarily fail.
It's funny. I kind of feel the same way, and then there's almost always a moment where like I find myself going like, oh my god, are we really gonna lose to this team?
well,
Like,
yeah.
and I'll say that against like I've said that while watching the Shock play, and I'm like the Shock aren't even like a convincingly good team yet,
and you love the shot.
and I love them, but I'm just sitting there like, oh man, are we really to lose to, like the Valiant? I'm like losing to the Valiant's like totally fine, but I'm just angry that we're losing to the Valiant.
Well, I mean, like, screw you first of all, but no, with like the Outlaws though, it's just like it's like I like them, but then like I watch like like they're like whining about certain things or whatever, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah.
I want to see you fail. Just like I want you to lose, stay on that losing streak, and they come and beat Seoul, and I'm just like,
Yep.
like why?
But we do have to cover the other possibility here.
The more likely one.
Yeah,
To be
the
truthful, this is going to be the more likely
yeah,
one. This is
yeah.
going to be an intense game.
So
And I'm interested to see what you have to say about it, Havoc.
well, Spitfire versus Excelsior, and you know what? I'm actually going to go slightly bold on it, and I'm going to give it a 3-1 to the Spitfire if the Spitfire make it.
Shocking.
And here's the bigger reason. NYXL has looked shaky versus the Spitfire and shaky versus Seoul Dynasty against teams that can adapt to
Oh, yeah.
that
Top-tier teams.
Exactly. Those top tier and not even top tier S tier teams. And I do firmly believe that despite the fact that Seoul Dynasty hasn't made it to the playoffs yet, they are still convincingly better than the Outlaws, even the Fusion. Like I don't think that those teams compare, because I think it's going to be it's like one good pickup if Seoul Dynasty goes, all right, we need a new DPS player, and they pick up a top DPS player. That's all of a sudden their team just goes from amazing to hyper amazing.
Yeah, no, I totally agree 100%. And like you even pointed out, like what you think the moves of Dynasty was with that, and it's like, oh, you're trying to trim your team. You're trying to get you in tip-top shape. That makes a lot of sense, and yeah, I actually absolutely agree. And I think that's actually worth it. I think they're playing the long game. They're not playing the short game right now. And yeah, it actually made me feel a lot better about it.
And so with that being said, for me, I go the fact that Sabiolbi, Prophet, interchangeable. I think Sabiolbi is maybe the better tracer. Prophet's way more flexible.
Sure.
100%.
Sure.
Like, absolutely. In agreement.
Libero to Birdring, I'd say they're equal in flexibility with Birdring's carry potential slightly higher.
I agree, but Libero is on a team that he doesn't have to do that
Exactly.
for.
He doesn't have to.
So he just complements the team perfectly.
And so and then when it comes to the tanks and the healers, I would say Spitfire edges them out in the tank department slightly, with Gesture being more consistent than Mono.
Yeah.
But Jonak edging out in the Zen department, as he's clearly the best Zenyatta in the league.
Yep, no doubt.
Literally the only weakness to Jonak's play is they have lost team fights before because if you time into his tunnel vision of attacking. He is consistently one of the lower, or I'm still in the top 5, but of the top 5 Zenyatas, he is consistently the lowest in healing.
I feel like him and Shaz is actually the reason why Zen is getting nerfed. Like, did you see that? Like, there's upcoming Zen nerfs. It's like, I feel like they're part of the problem. Like, and not that that's a bad thing. I've always thought Zen was great. I always thought Zen had a place, but like, I mean, when these guys are playing, I'm like, they're not even supports. They are straight up damage dealers
DPS,
with a side of healing. Just like serving up on one of his, mini hands. It's just like some healing here, but the rest of them are just all balls of death.
I mean, it's pretty nice to just put it on a diver and just like let him do his
that's
thing.
what you do.
I'm just gonna...
It's Genji's master, lore-wise. He just throws that on him. He's like, good luck, pupil. Like, you got this. I'm just going to like dish out some damage, old man hermit style,
And it especially combos especially well with the flankers, because you pop it on the flanker starts distracting someone, and you know who's the easiest target to hit? The guy who's not looking at you. All of a sudden the Soldier 76 is trying to shoot the Genji who's double jumping, and you're like, headshot.
You even
He's
throw
dead.
that sucker on a Winston, and he puts up his
Oh, yeah.
bubble, and you're just like,
Yeah.
okay,
Who cares?
Yeah.
But so but I ultimately am going to give it to the Spitfire, and the reason I'm going to give it to the Spitfire,
That's pretty bold still, though. But
it is because these teams, like I said, they're incredibly comparable.
Sure.
In the regular season, these teams are 5-5 versus each other, map wise. Both of them, every game that they've played has gone to overtime, and I'm going to. And the big reason I'm going to take away this one going to overtime is solely because I think the more that these two teams play, the more the Excelsior's weaknesses get large. I mean, not larger and larger as far as like exactly. They're more exploitable. They're more exploitable. I mean, we literally saw Dallas yesterday start to attack the weaknesses.
To tink away. They're chipping. They're chipping away at it. Absolutely. It's like watching them, take down a wall.
And I mean, we go to the Seoul Dynasty, and really, when you look, if you look on paper between the Seoul Dynasty and New York Excelsior, you should almost always be picking Excelsior right now.
Yeah,
sure.
Just because you go Fleta S tier, and then who's that other DPS? But just based on the strategy,
he always finds a way to hit me.
that Dynasty brings into the game, they have taken the Excelsior to overtime in both games, and the games have been incredibly close, despite the fact that as a full roster, Excelsior looks like a better team.
Sure.
Why couldn't Spitfire just give us Rascal? Like, dude, you guys would have been done. You guys would be, but the way Rascal's been playing, you guys would be done.
Well, at the very least, it wouldn't be a 4-0.
All right. So what's the score going into this? London versus Excelsior. What do you think?
Yeah, it's like I said, I got to stick with the 3-1. No,
Oh,
I'm going to stick with.
3-1.
I'm going to go 3-1, and it's on the back of the fact that I think that Excelsior is the more counterable team in the S tier department.
Okay.
Yeah, what about you, Sinus?
You know what? All those points were great. In stage 1, we saw that the Excelsiors were able to take the first 2 maps, and then weren't able to complete a third map in the next 3, which is just crazy. Just crazy.
And just to go on that point for your own. Is the first 2 maps were incredibly close, but Excelsior took. I mean, the control point they won 2-0, but it was 99 to 99.
That's what we were talking about
the whole
earlier.
time.
Yeah, and like sometimes that just doesn't show. But when we're watching it,
whereas in those next 3 maps, Excelsior got like nothing done.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
really, I mean, I feel like Excelsior has improved on being able to jump on the point, being able to actually finish a map. If they need it, they just go all out. They are able to take it. They look stronger in their finishing, in their kill shots. So I'm thinking it's going to be a 3-1, but for Excelsior. The reason being, I think Excelsior will be able to take the first 2 maps, Spitfire take the next map, and then Excelsior take the 4th map.
Okay.
So it's going to be one of those things where the London will try to get a reverse sweep. I don't think they're going to be able to take the first 2 maps. They're going to go for the reverse sweep, but Excelsior, I think they're going to be able to stop them.
Okay.
So, yeah, Excelsior.
I think it's going to be a 3-0 for Excelsior.
3-0 for Excelsior.
I don't think I totally understand your points, and I totally understand being a fan, and you definitely have to support your team.
Yeah.
But it's ironic, as I say, like, I think Fusion can handle Excelsior somewhat more than Spitfire. It's weird. I kind of do, though. Like, I can't put my finger on exactly why, but I feel like maybe it's just because I've seen when Fusion plays Excelsior, I've seen, that they are a bit capable of chipping away. They are a bit, they can get under their skin easier. Like with Spitfire, you're coming up, you're like, all right, well, this is the second best team. They have a way to beat us or whatever. Fusion, they're probably a little more tilted because they're like, we can't lose to this team. Whereas Spitfire, you can. I mean, Spitfire is a fine team to lose to. It's like, oh, I lost to London Spitfire. Okay. Like, it's like, duh.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I hear all your points, and I think it's possible. Like, I definitely do not discredit.
Throw them out the window.
No, I do not. I do not discount, and I do not discredit the Spitfire.
Yeah,
and they're one of the most consistent teams as well. I mean, they are where they are. They're where they belong because of it. But they've been making some weird choices, and I kind of see you're not there yet, but I see a bit of the dynasty, weird decision making that's going to affect the team soon.
Interesting.
And like, what was it? Getting rid of Rascal, first of all. Like, we were just like, it's such a weird decision. Why would you do that?
The bigger one for me is I don't understand why we got rid of Fissure to pick up another tank.
Right.
Yeah.
Why? But like, the thing is despite those choices, you're still here. So, and I think that says something about the Spitfire. And I think being a Spitfire fan right now is a good place to be. If you guys are loyal and your ace is high and all that, totally get it. Totally understand why you love your team. They're great. They're great to their fans.
Yep.
They're great to their community. And they're a great team. But I still think that Excelsior will 3-0 them. And this is going to be one of the reasons why. And this has just been something I've always noticed. The Zen player for Excelsior, you said his name earlier.
Badosin or Hagopen.
Best Zen player.
I would say if it's weird.
Okay,
it's weird.
Regardless,
I mean, it depends on what you value higher.
To tell you,
damage or healing.
To tell you, whichever Zen was playing at the time. Every time I've watched Excelsior, and I've seen them quite a bit now, especially since Derek's a huge fan.
Excelsior.
Exactly. I have never, and I cannot think of one time that I've ever seen a misused Zenyatta ult on the Excelsior team. I have never seen them use it too early. I have never seen it pop too early, even in the overtime stages. Like, I've never seen, and I can't say the same for Spitfire.
No, not at all.
Right, and those are the difference makers, though. Like, people think, like a Reinhardt ult can change the fight, absolutely 100%, but a ult that can save the fight, unless, you have Widow just taking out headshots, is Zenyatta's ult. I mean, it cancels, like, basically anything Zarya's ult is going to do. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it's one of the strongest ults in the game, like, hands down, in my opinion. I think Zenyatta's ult is one of the strongest. And of course, with Ana not being in the meta right now, though, you don't have the D-healing grenade, which, if you get a Zarya ult, D-healing grenade, it's a dead ult. It's dead in the water. It's not going to do anything. But since she's not in the meta right now, it makes it one of the strongest. And, Overwatch is a consistently flipping game like that, well, it should be. It should be, right? And I think that's why I just think Excelsior can manage their ults a little bit better than Spitfire. It's just in my opinion from what I've seen. And I think on a stage like this, that's going to be the huge difference maker. I would like to see a closer game. I would love to see the back and forth. And Spitfire is a team that can take it to them, and I think it's possible. But from just my analysis, from what I think it will be a 3-0 for the Excelsior.
And one thing I will say, I think the 3-0 and the 3-1 for Excelsior are far more likely if the Fusion game is is a 5-game series or
Sure.
even a 4-game
Well,
series.
the fatigue is going to set in too.
If the Spitfire 3-0 those teams, and then they don't even have to show deeper strategy.
Yeah.
Sure.
That is where I think it gets, because on top of that, the other thing is the pressure is way more on the Excelsior in the final between Spitfire and Excelsior than it is on the Spitfire, because the Excelsior don't want to lose a second stage to the Spitfire, especially going. They've consistently been the better team through stage 1. Yeah. They lost the stage 1 finals. If they're sitting here, they've been.
That's what I said. This is going to hit you outside of it. It's going to hit a morale.
I think if Excelsior,
what's the feed's going to say? What is social media going to say?
If the Spitfire get a 3-0 to the Fusion, that's going to make the Excelsior go, well, that was cleaner than we wanted it to be. Okay, all right, whatever. We'll play them. And I think if the Spitfire come out and win the first map. Every time, if you look at all the times the Excelsior's lost, which are admittedly few, all 3 times though, it starts with Sabiolbi or Libero or Pine becoming tilted.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's possible.
And
dude,
so,
if you lose that first match, like that's gonna get into your mind, man. It's like stage 1 all over again. You know, the PTSD starts to set in, and like, no, absolutely. Like I'm laughing right now, but that is a thing, and that absolutely can happen. But I think Excelsior, they've proven that they deserve to be where they're gonna be, and they're going to solidify that now. They're like, guys, we're here. We're gonna go out there and we're gonna win, unless Fusion's there. Then I want Fusion to win, but yeah, I still think that's gonna happen.
And that's fair. And that's why I'm saying I think if your guys' first game prediction is correct, so it's a 5-game series.
Yeah.
I think Excelsior is in the. I would go. It is far more likely that the Excelsior win.
Yeah.
I won't concede a 3-0 for my own team pride.
Sure.
But
Ace is high.
But I do think it is far more likely in that scenario. But I very firmly stand by if my prediction of the first game, if Fusion get routed and there's no fatigue for the Spitfire, they're on that hyper high. They're going like, look at that. We brushed aside the 3rd best team. Now it's time to take the finals. And Excelsior is going to be sitting there going like, dang it, Fusion. Yeah. Okay, well here we'll just beat them, and then on top of that, if that first game goes to Spitfire, I do think the 3-1 is more likely.
It
than,
also goes back to what I said, because you're like, dang it, Fusion. I'm just like, Fusion's just kind of there. They're like, hey, we weren't even supposed to be here, and like you just show up, and like now you're in the way, and I love it. I love Fusion's stance. Like Fusion has the best spot to be in here right now. Like to be that team, it's like, hey guys, what's up? Like you're just at this like high class elite party. It's like good to be here. Like,
the one of the last things we'll say before we hop on out of here.
the games are starting soon.
Gotta
get that pizza, man.
Exactly right. Is this the best part is, so regardless of who wins this this stage, we have a great narrative.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
If the Fusion win, we have a non-Korean team going, hey, by the way, anyone can win this.
We
matter.
If the Excelsior,
I'm kind of behind it. Like we're in Dynasty, but still.
If the Excelsior win it, they become the dynasty of the league.
Yeah.
They
were
least
elite in stage 2, and now they were elite concrete.
Yeah.
Exactly. And on top of that, and I'll come back to the Excelsior for this point in a second. And then with the Spitfire, if the Spitfire win the stage, it's gonna it puts the Excelsior into question.
Yeah.
Because now twice they've been the best team and then they didn't win it. And that kind of goes back to, so before the Overwatch League, the Excelsior, or the primary roster of the Excelsior, were a team called Glitterwatch. Glitterwatch and Runaways were 2 of the best teams in the Korean Apex to never win the finals.
Right.
And
some teams are just cursed with that, man.
So that's one of the things for the Excelsior. I think if Excelsior drop the stage playoffs to either team, doesn't matter who, I think that is going to start being a question of like
the curse.
Exactly. So do they need to bring in someone? And I think all these questions are going to be started. Do they need to bring in someone else? Do they need to start changing things up? So
well, that's the thing too. No matter like with any teams, man, with sponsors and stuff, no matter how many wins you can get the President's Trophy of the NHL where you're the top in that. But if you lose the Stanley Cup, it doesn't matter. And it goes in that with this. It's like if you always get up to there and then you just flop on the top stage and on the biggest match, then honestly, it doesn't matter. Like,
Yeah.
you can be the best, but if you don't win that, it doesn't matter. And that's what you're saying with Seoul. Like, you know, these count and these are great, but when you win the end, I mean, that's the biggest prize.
Basically, it's one of those things, like, unless you won every stage and then lost the final, because then at the very least you go like, I mean, we didn't win the final, so we're bummed, but we at
you were
least
consistently the best.
But if these stages go to a different team in each stage, and then none of those teams win the final, these stage victories are maybe a Band-Aid.
Yeah.
Florida Mayhem comes in at the end and just like wins. It's like sweeps Excelsior, sweeps Spitfire, like in the finals. Like, I don't know what I'd do. I'd be out of the job here, I guess. I'd just be like, guys, I could not see this coming. I'm sorry, Green Havoc, Cyanize, I'm out. I gotta step down.
I mean, nonetheless, this playoff is going to be awesome to watch. I'm really excited for it. And
super hype.
Stage 3 is just going to get even better and better. So,
and ESHQ is going to be lighting up on Twitter all throughout the playoffs.
Oh, yeah.
Green Havoc, Cyanize, and Bushido Viking. You better make sure you're following us because it's going to be fire.
Oh, yeah. And on top of that, just a little tease for what's coming up in the stage break, because obviously after these games, there's a 10-day break before Stage 3 re-begins. We have a series coming out called Stage Stats, where we take a look at the win-to-loss ratios home and away of all the teams and kind of surmise a little bit about what that means for the teams moving forward. We also are going to be releasing our top 10 DPS players of Stage 2, and this has been a very heated debate but between the 5 of us. So, I'm sure Oh Hey It's Derek will deliver it with a little spice and levity, so that will be an enjoyable video. And on top of that, we have some other discussions and other videos in the pipeline. So the only way to see all that is to like us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and of course YouTube, where the videos will primarily be posted.
Like those videos and subscribe.
Mm-hmm. And to the teams about to play in these playoffs, and regardless of the scenarios that unfold, good luck and have fun.